Welcome to the Scottish Rugby Blog podcast. We're back in the here and now. I am Cammy Black, and joining me this week are editor of the blog, Rory Baldwin.
Hello.
And we were going to have Gav Harper, but he's cried off with man flu. Now, Rory, I was thinking in a bid to increase listeners, we could probably do what the other pods do and start thinking of nicknames.
Okay.
I was going to go with Harps and Boulders tonight.
All right, okay.
That seems to be the done thing.
Harps?
Harps, well, for Gav.
Oh, Harps for him. Yeah, I was going to say, why are you calling it? Okay. Yeah, Harps is not here.
No, Harps is not here, so we'll not bother. It just seemed to be, in a bid to increase listenership.
Boulders and Black sounds a little bit like a sort of Undertaker's perm or something.
well, it's good to have that on the back burner anyway for future. We're here to talk about the game of Samoa. Gav was there, so we were hoping to have a bit of an insight from him on what he saw, whether he saw JK Rowling in the crowd, and he's done our player ratings. But we're renowned for going for the negative, Rory. So why don't we start with a positive? What was your positive from the Samoa game?
They scored loads of tries.
Yep.
And actually, there were quite a lot of players that played pretty well. They never looked like they weren't capable of scoring tries, which, if you think about how hopeless Scotland back divisions have looked in the past, I think that that's a pretty good thing. I watched the first half back for a second time, and that was it was all right. The first half. I think it was the second half really where things went a bit sort of a bit squiffy.
We could probably go. It's always seems to work when we go through the player ratings. So Gav's done the player ratings, and we could probably get some positives out of these. Stuart Hogg, he said, always a threat with ball in hand, kicked well when Scotland seemed to lack direction, and showed real leadership after John Barclay went off. 7.5 out of 10. Do you think? I mean, the leadership thing has come up. A few people on Twitter tonight have been talking about that. Do you? Have we got a definitive answer about who was captain?
Not really. I mean, in the team announcement on Thursday, they said that Hogg and Wilson were vice captains. I mean, that was listed on the team sheet, so they were both on the pitch. So I would assume it was one or both of them. But I couldn't see much evidence in the later stages of the game.
Yeah, because I've got it down. So it's let me have a look. 58 minutes. You have McInally, Marfo, Barclay, and Seymour all go off. Arguably, Barclay and Seymour are probably forced, given that Barclay's come back from concussion, and Seymour, I think, knacked his foot.
Yeah, he's got a sore toe of some sort.
Yeah, so at that point, it's 32-17 in Scotland's favour. And then, so that's 58 minutes, and then at 62 minutes onwards, that's when 3 of the 5 tries from Samoa scored. So, we're slipping on the negative quite quickly, but is that a leadership issue, do you think, or do you think it's the changes happening too quickly?
I mean, some of them were, was probably changes, lack of familiarity. Just having a wee look at the highlights there, and the sort of like the first Samoa try was pretty much just solid battering in front of the post. I don't think there was much that anybody could have done against guys that size coming down to you, and it wasn't like tackles were being missed. They were just making a yard or two with each carry, and they're, if you keep going, eventually you're going to get over the line. But I think the sort of the ones that struck us all as a bit soft towards the end of the game. Certainly, the Trevor Annis one was where he looked like he just kind of waltzed in from a ruck. They were all sort of like Swinson and I think it was Batty, where they'd come from the previous breakdown and were sort of running to get round the far side of the ruck to take up their positions, but there was actually no one behind them coming in to take up the sort of the pillars or the posts or whatever you want to call them on the near side. So there was a bloody great gap for him to run through.
Yeah, because 2 of the I think the first one and the one that was almost, I think it was held up probably. But
there was one that never should have been given as well.
Yeah, but I think that one, and then the first one under the post, so the one where they put it in the first half. Both of those, Price is defending in the middle of the ruck, which just seemed bizarre to have
He's
him.
not a big guy.
No, and I don't know if that's normal to find a scrum half defending a ruck at that point in the line.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose that's probably as an attack what you're looking to try and do is to try and find a way to get a mismatch close to the line where you've got like an Ali Price or a Dan Parks or a Duncan Weir defending when they should actually be hiding out on the wing.
Yeah.
Although I mean Ali Price, he doesn't dodge tackles. It's maybe unfair to lump him in with in that company, but. He is a wee guy, and some of those Samoans were pretty hefty characters. So
yeah, he's probably not as effective, 1 metre out as he would be in the loose in terms of his tackling.
Yeah. That's fair.
But Hogg, I mean, it was a good game for Hogg. I think from an attacking point of view. But I was watching it back, trying to work out whether or not he had a role in organising the defence sort of further out later on in the game, or whether or not that was solely down to, say, Wilson. And
did you come to any conclusions?
I decided that it was all Ryan Wilson's fault.
Right. Okay. I mean, yeah, it's I think one of the Tim Nanai-Williams try where he went, so he cut a very similar line.
Yeah.
He went between Chris Harris, who'd just come on, and Hugh Jones, who was probably a bit tired. And I mean, Jones almost got him, but I think it was maybe Harris and he that sort of didn't quite combine correctly, and we saw that again in attack. I think later on there was a little bit of unfamiliarity with some of the combinations maybe, and that probably didn't help the defensive effort, especially somebody like Harris, who hasn't been working with Matt Taylor's defensive system for 4 or 5 years, unlike a lot of the Glasgow boys in particular.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's one of the benefits of having a game like this early on in the series is rather than we'd normally play sort of New Zealand and get tanked, then play South Africa or Australia, maybe run them close if we're lucky, and then play it was Georgia last year or Tonga or Samoa in the last game I suppose it was supposed to be a guaranteed win, although that didn't really work out for Andy Robinson against Tonga. But
yeah,
I suppose the benefit of putting this match up front is that you get the opportunity for players like Chris Harris who are coming in to get the system working and to blow away the cobwebs, having not played international rugby since the summer, and get the team to gel and have a proper run at somebody like the All Blacks, however realistic that might be.
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at. It was quite interesting to sort of watch Daryl Murphy in the first kind of 20 minutes of the game. I mean, he had a pretty good first half. I don't think he'd be too unhappy with how the game went. He was pretty good in the scrum, although the referee didn't quite see it that way. But it looked to me like he had the upper hand on the opposition tight head, even though they kept getting pinged for wheeling.
Yeah, no, I liked him a lot. I mean, I hadn't seen much. I've only seen a couple of Edinburgh games this season, but I thought he was. I know Richard Cockrell had said something along the lines of he'd normally be a squad player in England or something, but I thought he stood up quite well against. I mean, that's a good scrum Samoa.
Yeah, and it was quite. He just looked like he was kind of having a good time. He was mixing it up a little bit, shoving people about. He's obviously been hanging around with Xander too much, and but you could see occasionally he looked like he was sort of jogging a little bit, but maybe he was resting himself. I mean, the pace was probably pretty high. I mean, John Barclay looked like he's struggling with the pace midway through the first half. So I think it's good to get these guys in and say, this is what it's going to be like. Because if he thinks that was a bit of a test, then Daryl he'll find next week a bit more of a shock to the system.
Yeah, we can't be too harsh on props for jogging either.
Yeah, no, I mean it's kind of to be expected, but it was almost like everyone was jogging apart. It's like the backs do the sprinting and the forwards just they're jogging now.
Yeah, rumble from ruck to ruck. Yeah, well, I wonder whether or not that's one of the downsides of Tooney's way of playing, is that it's just going to be too fast for the forwards to keep up.
Yeah, and that's the worry. I mean, he's gonna have to find forwards that can do that, and then if you find forwards that can do that, does that mean that you don't have any forwards who can batter holes in the defensive line? I'm all for rugby being about hitting the space, not the man, but you still do have to run into contact occasionally, and it's one way of trying to get past the game line.
Yeah.
And there is a worry. A lot of people seem to be sort of commenting on the site that there's a worry that exclusively kind of targeting that approach would leave us with two sort of lightweight pack that are easy to push about.
Yeah, because if you're expecting the back three to be running 50, 60 metres, breakaway tries or making ground, and expecting the forwards to keep up, then that's quite a big. I can't think of many teams where you could, at international level, where you could play that tempo and expect the forwards to keep up with play.
Yeah, I mean it's almost like, I mean, what the All Blacks I think seem to do is they'll play very direct, kind of basic rugby until there's a sniff, and then they're away, and then they sort of suddenly they up the tempo and they go through, and that's what, in attack or defence, they'll keep their defensive shape and they'll wait for a knock on or something, and then suddenly boom, you see them kind of springing into action. And it was almost like Scotland are trying to do that, but they're also trying to create, but they're not bothering with the first part. They're just trying to create the moments, or sort of force the opposition, kick the ball to the opposition, hope they drop it, and then boom, they can pounce. But that's only going to work sometimes. And
yeah, I suppose it's playing. They're trying to Scotland are trying to play high tempo rugby for 80 minutes, whereas what the All Blacks do is probably play high tempo rugby, get the scores on the board, and then just wait for the other side to tire and have another crack and have rest periods in the game and give yourself a breather.
They probably play high tempo rugby for sort of 5-10 minutes either side of half time, and the last 15 minutes when the other side can't hack it anymore and run up a score.
Yeah, and I wondered whether that's part of the reason why Scotland let in so many tries late on in the game, is that it's probably down to a lack of game management, and whether that's the coaching issue or whether it's down to whoever was captain at the time. There were about 3 or 4 times in the second half where a policy of just sticking the ball up the jumper and just going through the phases nice and slowly with a really comfortable lead and just tiring the Samoans out was probably the best policy. But for one reason or another, they're still trying to play high tempo quick rugby at 75. Well, I think was it 75 minutes that last Samoa try, or just before?
Yeah.
Oh, it's the Horn try.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to be. It's certainly entertaining, but you wonder if the fitness is going to work, because you've only got so many replacements, so you can't bring on a completely fresh team, and a lot of those guys will have been doing quite a lot of running, especially if they're having to attack from deep, as they do. That's the other reason they should maybe try and bring a bit more kind of basic direct rugby, is that it means that if there's less kicking, there's less running back and forth. They're putting their energy into going forward rather than just turning about the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, I've got 75 minutes from Scotland with 44-31 up, and then Samoa come back and score a try within. I mean, it was so quick. The guys whoever was doing the Telegraph score updates was only tweeting about. In fact, even the Scotland official account, I think, was only tweeting the Scotland tries on a couple of occasions, and then having at the same time as Samoa was scoring.
I mean, I think that the first half, I mean, just after half time, 45 minutes, they were up 32-10, and that's the point at which they should have not shut up shop, but become a little more conservative.
Yeah, I suppose stuck a note on the door saying back for lunch, something like that. We're back in 10 minutes, had 10 minutes of just keeping the ball in hand, running through the phases.
If you do that, then to sort of 55, 60 minutes, and then that leaves them with 20 minutes to score 3 tries or whatever they would have needed. and he probably would have got a couple of penalties, and that would have been the game put to bed. But as it was, they stuck at it. Samoa actually came out with a better plan in the second half than Scotland did, I think. And what they were doing, was working. They were a bit more controlled and didn't kind of play into the scrappy game that Scotland were looking for. And Scotland, it's not that they didn't respond, it's just that they didn't really, because they were winning, they maybe didn't see the need to change what they were doing. But, obviously we saw that slowly but surely Samoa kind of sneaked their way back into it.
Yeah, I guess it's the first game. I don't know why we had the summer tests, I guess, but it's the first game at Murrayfield, and that seemed to me to be the first game we've seen Townsend playing what is his system, which was quick ball, from the line, quick ball from the lineouts as well. Really, sort of getting the ball in and getting the game going again. So I suppose whether or not an unintended consequence of that they hadn't fully appreciated until they'd run through it is that you need the game management to go with it.
Yeah, I think it's it's certainly entertaining. There were very few scrums. The lineouts were quick, and the ball was in play quite a lot of the time. But I don't think we'll see the same style of rugby next week.
Yeah. So we've got. I think Gav's got Hugh Jones at 7.5 out of 10 and Hoggy at 7.5 out of 10 as his two standout backs. Would you agree with that? Anybody else? I mean, I don't, because I think Lee Jones was man of the match, but
yeah, I mean, he had a good game. I don't know how he'll do that against whichever monster winger the All Blacks are going to pick.
With six tackles and none missed, which is pretty good going given his size.
He did. I mean, he took on. He certainly worked on this defence. He's not. I don't think you could accuse. He's small, but I don't think you accuse him of being lightweight anymore. And he certainly, gives it a good go in the tackle. I mean, for me, actually, probably Ali Price was the pick of the backs. I don't think he did very much wrong at all. His box kicking was pretty good, unlike Master Pyrgos when he came on. Hoggy was good, but I think Price for me. I think Jones could have been a higher score, but he didn't see enough ball. But that's not his fault. Same probably goes for Dunbar.
Yeah, 6 out of 10 maybe feels a little bit harsh for Finn.
It's sort of Finn's one of these guys. He really needs 2 ratings. It's like he needs a score for the good things and a score for the bad things. So he's probably 8 out of 10 for the good stuff and 4 out of 10 for the endless grubber kick and the hospital passes he kept throwing. He kept doing these no look passes, and he did one to Wilson who dropped it, and then he tried another 2 I think to Dunbar, where they were basically standing side by side, and he was pretending that he was going to pass to somebody much further away, and then he passed it to Dunbar, who got flattened each time. I probably wouldn't have thanked him for that.
Yeah, I just wonder whether sometimes Finn just thinks he's playing in a park somewhere with his mates.
Yeah, he's just having. He is. I think he's. I mean, and he's having fun. And there was one. He had the one little half break where he just sort of showed it, and he sort of just ghosted through a gap, and you forget how fast he can be when he's on the hoof. I think Finn Russell against Bowden Barrett could be interesting, certainly.
Yeah, especially
but, it all depends on the team.
Well, I was going to say, because Finn's been trying that sort of kick pass thing this season since he's come back from New Zealand. I don't know if it's something he's picked up on the Lions tour or been watching, but he's tried it for Glasgow a few times, so that could be interesting next weekend if you've got 2 fly halves trying it. Probably one with more success than the other, I would have thought, but.
Yeah, it depends. Again, it might come down to the wingers. If Finn's kick passing to Lee Jones, but there's like Naholo or somebody on his wing.
Yeah.
Then yeah.
It could be a very, very long afternoon for Lee Jones.
Could be a long afternoon. There were some people saying Visser should be brought back in for that one, but we're not going to see him. He's not in the squad.
Well, yeah. I mean, the one thing what I liked about Lee Jones is it's the stuff. And I had a lot of people throwing stats at me on Twitter on Saturday evening after I'd sort of gone off on one about Mossy choosing McInally. But it was more the stuff he was doing off the ball. It was the lines he was running in support, which were making defenders think twice, and he just seemed to be putting himself about quite a lot, and I liked that. I think Seymour was probably a little bit quiet again, but behind all this, of course, we don't know what they're being told to do by the coaches, whether or not Lee Jones is being given permission to run those lines and to go looking for work, and Seymour's being told to hang back a bit, or whether or not that's just Lee Jones thrives on that 7 style of play, which against teams like Samoa and even the All Blacks can work if you've got somebody willing to sort of cover the gaps that you're leaving.
Yeah, I mean, I would think they're all being given license to play heads up rugby. I mean, it is interesting that you used to see guys who disappear through a gap and nobody else was sort of on their wavelengths. Like Mike Blair used to do it all the time, and there was no supporting runners. And now, actually, one of the major ways that Hoggy's improved his game is he's actually creating a lot more than. He used to get criticised for being a bit selfish and hunting the tries. And I mean, he does pick up a phenomenal amount of tries, but that's because Seymour is very unselfish. But the pair of them, they've got quite a sort of a good relationship in terms of how they play, and they create a lot for each other. And I think Lee Jones was doing that quite a lot on his wing as well. He almost, there was almost that try where the ball just bounced into touch before he could get a foot to it. But there was certainly, I mean, there was certainly plenty of enterprise, and in terms of actually what didn't work, there was, most of them came off.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure whether, I mean, apart from force changes, for me, I would be quite happy to see that back line go out again.
Yeah, I don't think there'll be many changes. I guess Jones and Seymour might come in. I mean, size might come into it depending on the team, but I think Tooney's probably not going to worry too much about who the opposition have selected. He'll just pick his team. So I think you probably see Jones again. Seymour is probably going to depend on his toe injury. He may not get back into training until later in the week, so that's probably going to just depend on how he's going.
Was Visser in the cat? Is Visser in the training squad?
No, he's not.
No, so you're probably looking at what, McGuigan, or bringing in Grigg and sticking Jones on the wing? Yeah,
that's a possibility, I suppose. Or bringing in Horn and putting Dunbar to 13 and sticking Jones on the wing. I would imagine that they probably would want a wing. I mean, maybe Harris. He's got his cap now, so maybe he'll be tried out on the wing. I think I'm not sure if he's more of a winger or a centre, but.
I think he can cover. He can cover wing, and he can cover. I think that's part of the reason he was on the bench, is that he can cover all bases. Whether or not, I think Samoa was a good game to introduce him. Whether or not he did enough,
they might decide someone like Dougie Fife comes in, or Fife for McGuigan would be, I think, probably the next sort of cabs off the rank for a. If Seymour's injury is bad enough that he needs a starting winger.
Yeah, and in the forwards then, I think Gav's got McInally as his pick of the pack, which I think you went for man of the match. And
he was fine.
Yeah, I think he's probably done enough to cement his place.
Yeah, I think he was probably he just needed that game. I think he's struggled so long to get a start, and I think it's a confidence thing, and he's finally starting to look like a hooker, or a modern hooker, not an actual hooker that has to hook the ball or anything.
Yeah,
but he was looking good, and things definitely lost a little bit of the solidity when he went off, which is a shame because Turner's had actually he has a really good season so far for Glasgow. But he'll learn from that as well. I suppose the issue now is, do you put someone with a bit more experience like Cochrane on the bench for the All Blacks, or do you just keep giving Turner, stick with Turner? But certainly McInally, he should be starting.
I think I'd be happy to stick with Turner. I think probably just getting used to the pace. That was his first. Well, it was his debut, wasn't he? That was his first cap. I think
that was his first cap, yeah.
Yeah, he was on the summer too, wasn't he? But didn't get on. But I think probably just... I know Jamie Batley's talked about the difference in the step up between playing in the Premiership and then playing in Pro 14 and then International's a step up again. So you would hope that those players that made their debut off the bench have now got a measure of how fast international rugby is and how quick you have to think. Hopefully they should be ready now.
Yeah, ready for the All Blacks.
Yeah, which again I think just goes to show it's a shrewd move putting the Samoa or the tier 2 for being looking at it that way, but this sort of tier 2 test at the start, I think it's what Wales and England have done in the past. I think is to, play the easier game first to get everybody up to speed, and then have a proper run at the next 2 tests.
Yeah, I mean, effectively, it's the start of the international season. You wouldn't want to play the first game of the season against the All Blacks, really, would you? Unless you were gluttons for punishment like France, who seem to be playing them twice in a week.
We've done that in the past, haven't we? Scotland have done that.
Oh, I'm sure we have, but probably in the past it was just because, well, if you want to play us, this is when you get to play us.
Oh, true. I think the rest, in terms of the rest of the backs, I would probably, I think it's probably people probably expect that. I'm still not convinced that Ryan Wilson at international level. I had somebody berating me tonight on Twitter for saying that he wasn't up to scratch in terms of his leadership, given how well he's captaining Glasgow at the minute. But I don't know. I don't think you can compare captaining a Pro 14 side with captaining at international level. But on the other hand, I also not sure where Scotland's next number 8's coming from.
No, South Africa maybe.
Possibly, yeah.
I think, I mean, I would say maybe I thought of the second rows. Toulis actually played a lot better than Johnny Gray. Although watching the first half back, Johnny Gray did do a fair bit of work that I didn't see the first time round. But yeah, the back row's a funny one. Barkley had quite a quiet game by his standards, but he does have the leadership which we're missing. And he's one of these guys that usually raises his game for the big ones. Maybe not against England, but I think that was maybe just down to the referee not seeing things his way on the breakdown. But he's one of these guys that is quite a big game player, and I think Watson too. He was very good, and he will, provided he's got some energy, he should be in there. But yeah, actually, Cornell Dupree was for me, he made probably a bigger impact in the 20 minutes or so he was on than Wilson did in the game. I mean, Wilson's one of these guys. I was saying it to somebody else. You almost have to wait and see the sort of post-match stats to see how well he's done, because a lot of what he does do isn't sort of obvious. And he's very much a 6'8", because he does the work of a 6. He tackles lots, he gets involved in the hard stuff, but he's not like a big visible ball carrier. But unfortunately, that's kind of what we need at 8.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is, in terms of the tackling, is Barkley and Watson are making more tackles than him by quite some distance. I mean, he made 9 tackles and missed 1, which was quite a way behind Barkley and Watson. But I mean, again, whether or not he's standing somewhere else in the defensive line and isn't, and Barkley and Watson are being deployed, in certain areas where he's not. But it just comes back to, I think we need somebody different in that role.
Yeah, I think. If he's in there for sort of defensive leadership, then that didn't work so well, and that's really, Barkley is that they're quite sort of similar players, I guess, in terms of the sort of stuff that they get to do. Barkley's maybe a bit more involved on the deck, but I mean, some of it is probably just depending on where the Samoans choose to run, whether they run closer to the ruck that you've just been into, or whether you're somewhere else. I mean, we've seen Wilson have those big games where he puts in a ridiculous amount of tackles, and he was, I think he was the joint top tackler. I can't remember if it's the Pro 14 or the Six Nations last year with Johnny Gray. Yeah. Or the Pro 12 as it was. So yeah, I mean, we know he can do it, but it's one of these things that is picking him and waiting for him to do that thing enough? Does that give us enough from our number 8? Do we need a bit more? I mean, Cornell Dupree, he does. I mean, he's a bit maybe like Bradbury or Denton. They do drift in and out of games a bit, and we don't. That's not what we need either. But when they're carrying, they offer something quite different, which is a bit of go forward, some nice hands offloading, or certainly Dupree does anyway.
Yeah, I think we've said it before, but it's the position that worries me most. I think number 8, and it used to be the front row, and I'm not as worried about that as I was, but I think it's now the next big task. I think for Townsend is he needs to find a number 8 that's going to come in and do what an international 8 does. Yeah. And that's not to say I think Ryan Wilson is a very good, if not exceptional, club player, but I don't think he's consistent enough at international level to warrant a start as often as he does.
Yeah, it's the consistency thing, really. And I mean, he does have that versatility off the bench as well. I mean, Dupree is really just a number 8. Wilson could play it at any of the positions, so maybe there's an argument to bring him on later in the game where aggression is maybe more useful. But I think it would be, for me, I would pick Dupree to start on Saturday. But whether Townsend will, I'm not sure.
Yeah, and John Welsh is back in the training camp.
Yeah, John Welsh is back.
Well, I'm very excited about that.
Now, is he counted as the? I presume we're counting him as a tight head rather than the 6th choice loose head or something.
Well, I think I don't know, because he can play both sides, and I think whether or not he ends up on the bench as cover for both sides of the scrum plus Finn Russell at 10. With his, his kicking skills,
the chip and chase. Well, there was a lot of grubber kicking going on across all weekend.
Well, it's exactly. I think he could fit very well into Townsend's style of play.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to seeing John Welsh back in the side. I'm hopefully he gets in. I think it doesn't sound like Nell's going to be.
No, Nell's out.
Is he definitely out?
Yeah, he's Nell and Swinson and Harley are all out, although Harley obviously wasn't playing, so he's done something for himself in training.
Fallen over in the hotel on the way back.
Yeah, something like that. And maybe he was out on the piss with Magnus Bradbury. Well,
I saw Hoggy was DJing in a nightclub, apparently, according to Facebook. Yeah, there's a photo of him on the decks at some nightclub.
All right.
So I didn't think they were allowed. Yeah, I don't think they were allowed to do that sort of thing, but.
I wonder if he was playing the music in Finn Russell's head.
He's hoping. Part of the reason we might sound a bit odd tonight is because I haven't got the normal recording set up. So if I did, I could have played the music in Finn Russell's head because I've now got it as a regular thing just to stick on in the background.
Awesome. For every time we mention it.
Every time we mention it, I can just stick it on.
Which will now be regularly.
Yeah. So next week we can look forward to that next week.
Nell is injured. He's fractured his arm. Swinson has done something to himself, and he's out. And Harley's out. And Seymour's had a scan on his foot, but is rumoured to be okay.
Yeah. Oh well. So backs, we're probably thinking forwards. Apart from Nell, I mean, we'd like to see. I'd like to see Wilson replaced, but I don't know probably with Dupree. Whether or not that happens, I'm not convinced that Townsend.
I think it'll be a swap. I think his match day 23 is probably not going to change much, apart from maybe the 23 shirt.
Yeah.
Harris might get swapped for McGuigan or Dougie Fife or somebody.
Yeah, I think it would be good to see Harris get another run against Australia, but I think somebody with a bit more game time at international level probably needs that shirt. But it was good, it was a good game for him to come in. I don't think he did anything. I think Gav's score 5 out of 10 is fair. I don't think he did anything that makes me think he's nailed on a place in the bench or is likely to feature for Scotland for years to come. But
yeah, I mean, he did. I don't think he caught the ball. He missed a tackle and he ran into Hugh Jones. But people have had worse debuts.
Yeah, Jeff Cross.
Yeah,
he didn't tackle a man in the air on his first thing, get knocked out and yellow card as he was stretchered off. So I think if that's the touchstone for any Scotland debut,
gold standard.
Yeah, that's it. So if you manage not to do that, then you're probably worth another run.
Comment of the week.
It's time for a comment of the week now. Don't forget to leave your comments on the blog, and we'll pick out the best and read them on the podcast. I have got one. I've got a slight point of order with mine. It's from the smidge, which was left on Gav's player ratings, and said, "I declare these ratings on this week's Hands in the Ruck." On a point of order, the smidge, if you want a Hands in the Ruck, you've got to leave a comment on the podcast post. So that's first things first. That's why it's not a Hands in the Ruck. But he said, the one bit I liked was Henry played his way, is what Henry Burgos. Henry played his way onto the train back to Glasgow, not the fast service to Queen Street, the slow one to Central, which is more like how he plays. And then 1.8T nominated that as a comment of the week. So I thought that was a good shout.
Yeah.
I feel bad Gav's not here to defend himself.
Yeah, I mean, I had a look at the ratings over on the offside line, and they weren't that different. I think he was maybe generous to Wilson and not generous enough to Watson.
Yeah,
and Toulis. I thought Toulis played very well, but
I think with these things, there's only ever about 1 point in it compared to what everybody thinks anyway. You never.
It's what you see, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It's all very subjective. What have you got for comment of the week then, Rory?
I've got a comment by Ross, which was on the match report, and he said he agree with the comments of those saying there's a bit too much panic and judgment going on. Let's take both the positives and the negatives in context, please, particularly on the player performance chat, because I think there were quite a lot of people calling for certainly Henry Pyrgos and possibly Tim Swinson to leave and never come back, as Colin would say. But yeah, I think that's a bit. I mean, he said he went on to say Marfo was good, which is great to see. Let's not forget though that he was not that long ago a squad player at London Welsh. As long as he keeps playing like that, he deserves to start, and I won't have a bad word to say about him. But I'm not ready to say, as some have, that he's international quality alongside Dickinson, etc. And he's also, he goes on to say that we should cut Johnny Gray some slack, and it was good to see that Dupree, Horn, and McInally, who've possibly underperformed in the past, but are finally showing some real quality.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. I think we probably are too miserable about these things, and I think after, like I said in the Six Nations, partly I think it comes from that we're in a different place to where we've been in the past, so it feels like we should be a bit harder on the team. But they say if you're going to beat the All Blacks, you just have to score more points than them, and we are clearly capable.
We've got the practice, yeah. Yeah,
we're capable of scoring 40 plus points. We just have to be capable of not shipping 40 plus points, and we'll be away.
No bother.
Yeah. So don't forget to leave comments on the blog, and we'll pick them up and read them out on the podcast.
Well, we love Ty and we love blue. We sing Doddie bop on in the speedos, but I just wanna know, did you see the legend that's Dougie Donnelly?
Right, it's time for Where's Dougie Donnelly? This started as a call for you to send us your spots of Scottish sporting media personalities you've seen out and about. But we're going to expand it now, and we also want rugby-related rumours too. All the rugby podcasts are doing it apparently, and they're generating lots and lots of column inches from it. So we just want to get in on the act, just to show how well connected we are. Right, Rory, my big one. I've heard very good, reliable sources about Johnny Gray's new contract. Have you heard about this?
No.
Big offer. Source tells me he's about to sign up for a new contract, 24 months. BT Mobile, 3 gigs, unlimited minutes and unlimited texts, £30 a month and a free iPhone X. So
£30 a month.
Yeah, that's absolutely nailed on. Apparently, that absolutely nailed on. That's definitely happening. Nailed on. Have you had your ear to the ground? Have you heard any?
I haven't actually. I've gone old school. I've actually got I've got a celebrity rugby sighting.
Ooh, go on then.
From the 90s.
From the 90s.
Yeah.
This is when you were in the 90s, or somebody from the 90s?
I was in the 90s.
Recently, time machine, or is this you remembering?
Yeah, no, this is just remembering. I was reminded the other night. I was round at my folks, and they were reminding me of the time that Doddie Weir came to play tennis at our tennis club up in Inverness. I think he was up for some sort of workshop or training event for kids at one of the local schools, I think. and he was after a bounce game of tennis. So my folks had the dubious honour of helping make up 4 with them and one other player. And I can't actually remember it. I'm really hoping that he had a tartan shell suit, but I don't know how ridiculous his
that
attire
would be.
was.
I tell you what would be a real feat is, as a tennis player, you could lob Doddie Weir.
Yeah. I mean, I was too young to get a shot in the game at that point, but I do remember. Yeah, I remember Dad chatting to him in the bar afterwards, and then one of the person who was the other player was giving him a lift to the station or whatever, and unfortunately they had a very small sports car that Doddie and his shell suit had to wheel into. So yeah, I thought that would be that's my celebrity rumour, just in honour of the great man, and obviously the work he's doing at the moment with his trust and stuff for the motor neuron disease, which there was a big dinner at the weekend. So
yeah, probably my best 90s one is that I think I went to a Barbars game at Murrayfield and Gary Armstrong ran me over. Well, nearly ran me over. He didn't run me over. He nearly ran me over. I just remember a car coming out honking its horn, and then the car sped away. And my dad going, "That was Gary Armstrong." I said, "Oh." So yeah, it's not as good as playing tennis against Doddie Weir, but it's close. Nearly named by Gary Armstrong. We did have one submission on the blog, which was from see who.
Did somebody not actually see Dougie Donnelly somewhere?
We had those in the past. We haven't had any recent sightings of Dougie Donnelly. We had lots of good ones for when he used to DJ a disco in somewhere in Glasgow, some seedy part of Glasgow apparently. This is from Not Rocket Science, who's a regular commenter on the blog, who said that he bumped into Ollie Kebble's close friends and family whilst drunk in late September in a restaurant. It's not clear from this whether or not Ollie Kebble's family were drunk or Not Rocket Science was drunk. So do write in and let us know. Not Rocket Science, that'd be good to know. But he said he can confirm he absolutely is a project player and fully intends to play for Scotland if they cap him. Then White goes on to say that that's already been reported on the BBC. So that's the kind of rumours we're looking for. Is things that have already been corroborated elsewhere, but you've heard it from someone. That's the standard that we're going to aspire to.
Yeah.
So if somebody's told you, if you've heard that somebody's signed for Glasgow or Edinburgh and it's already been announced on the BBC, but you've heard from them or someone that knows them that that's happened, then we want to hear those sorts of rumours.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're trying to the opposite of fake news.
Yeah, exactly, and hopefully Rob Robertson or somebody like that can pick up these our in the know, tap side of the nose, well sourced stories and report them as fact.
Yeah, Gareth Black of the Scotsman will be all over it.
Yeah. Well, that's my secret. Well, he's my secret sauce. Shh.
Yeah, sorry.
Hands in the rock, who has got their hands in the rock? Hands in the rock, hands in the rock, who has got their hands in the rock?
Right, it's time for Hands in the Rock now. It's our Any Other Business part of the blog, the podcast, and we are looking for your contributions as well as our own suggestions for things. So do get in touch on the blog under the podcast posts and we'll pick out the best ones. We've had our first one by Twitter from Graham Love, friend of the blog. I didn't beg him for this in any way or ask him if I could use it as Hands in the Rock. He submitted this of his own free will, and he was just saying that at Murrayfield it may have been a sellout, but the atmosphere was pretty poor. I know there's no edge to the game, but still, and the hush that descends following kick-off is sad. And it sounded. I was going to ask Gav this, but on the telly it sounded very flat for large parts of the game, given the score, and it just seems to be the perennial problem at Murrayfield. And I don't know whether it's the people, the stadium, or the SRU.
Let's blame Scott Johnson.
Scott Johnson needs to be. I think really what the answer is probably Scott Johnson doing a Delia in the middle of the. I'd like to see that. That's like All Blacks. Scotland are 30-0 down at half time. We want Scott Johnson in the centre of the pitch shouting, "Come on, let's be having you," repeatedly.
Yeah.
Where are you?
I think that I don't think it's the stadium.
No,
it's certainly capable of having an atmosphere. I mean, I don't know. It's you can't really blame the SRU for filling it for a Samoa game. But yeah, there may have been a lot of kids there who were dragged along for £1 a ticket and maybe got bored. I don't know. There did seem to be a Mexican wave at one point.
I do. Well,
but we don't want to discourage kids from coming to the games.
No, and I think that for the kids. I used to love being part of Mexico. I think as adults we can be very cynical about Mexican waves, but I like them. I think they're, as a kid, it's a good way to keep kids entertained. And I love it as a kid, so it's nice to feel part of that. A sort of friend of mine's daughter went there for, it was her first international match, and she really, really enjoyed that. And that was one of the things she came away saying she'd enjoyed being part of it. So I think we get very cynical about it, but it is one way to generate an atmosphere in Dole Park when things aren't happening on the pitch.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it was one of those funny games where it was almost, I think, if it's like if you can see it's a good contest, and it was a good contest, but it wasn't a particularly sort of well executed contest, if you know what I mean. If it's a proper test match that's kind of gripping, it was sort of a ding dong battle almost by accident. It seemed at the time, just because I don't know. It was a slightly funny game.
Yeah, it was an odd one, and I don't know who decided to have it's magic playing after every time Finn kicked that. I don't know. Do you think Finn Russell has chosen that music?
I'm not sure. Maybe you should send him your jingle. And
I think so. Yeah, if anybody's listening to this,
Michael James.
Yeah, please try and persuade Finn to have the remix of the Magic Roundabout theme tune as his kicking success song, because that would be amazing. Have you got hands in the ruck, Rory? Because we didn't have any other on the blog this week.
Yeah, I would say I've decided to outsource. So I've outsourced it to my old man, who's a former referee, who appears from time to time as Old Whistler on Twitter and on the site. I thought about him with earlier on today when I saw that Steve Hansen said that Sonny Ball Williams didn't know the rules, and it's laws, not rules. And I got that from your dad. Yeah. That's one of his. So I just asked him what was most annoying him at the moment about the current laws that are not being applied, and his favourite at the moment is Law 15.7c, which is
that's the kind of detail we like.
Yeah, no player may fall on or over the players lying on the ground after a tackle with the ball between or near to them. Basically, this is just players who come piling into the ruck, not the tackler or the ball carrier, but the everyone who comes to join in the party and just kind of flops over the ball, which I suppose is some way of protecting the ball so that it comes back on your side rather than allowing the opposition to challenge it, because they have to go through your backbone effectively to get there. But most of the time it just ends up with a bunch of people sort of lying on the ground. There's a very nice illustration on the World Rugby website that looks like 2 or possibly 3 gents spooning on the ground to illustrate the problem. But it's just one of these things. I mean, you can see a guy, say the size of Richie Gray, who is one of the guys that I've noticed doing it quite a lot.
Yeah.
Is when you're the size that he is and you come piling in at any great speed with a slightly downward angle, your momentum is probably going to make you fall over. I mean, gravity's going to do most of that work for you. So it must actually be quite hard for him to not fall over. But it's another one of these laws that they never really bother applying, or they'll apply very selectively. And it's probably something that I'm sure Gregor would agree, because it'll speed up his ball and he wants a quick ball.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things with the ruck. There's so many rules around it now and so many different things going on that I think often for a referee to actually work out what's actually happening.
Yeah.
And who's on their feet. You've got to watch for the attacking player. Are they on their feet and trying to get the ball fairly? Are they trying to stop releases? The tackler released, has the ball been... Is it being held in? And on top of that, then looking at guys flopping on top of it, it's quite a lot to watch. I suppose that's the argument for a second referee.
Yeah, and I mean the other, I think it's It was 15.6a or something was one of the other bits that he had in conjunction with that, which is that you can't, you're considered on the ground if any part apart from your feet is touching it. So even being on sort of all fours is not really. I guess you can, if you're touching a player, then you're bound to the ruck or whatever, rather than. But if any part of you is on the deck, and then Darryl Marshall did, to be fair, get pinged for that at least once for sort of piling into the ruck and then going off his feet. So it does happen occasionally, but it's all a bit of a bugger's muddle, really.
Yeah. My hands in the ruck is the SRU question and answers, which I've put hundreds of questions now to the players that they've asked them for, and I've not seen hide nor hair of them answering. I mean, not just my questions, but any of my questions or if anybody's questions. They just keep asking for players. I don't. It's not on the YouTube channel. I don't know if they're doing it at half time or something like that, maybe. But I wasn't at the game, so I didn't get to see it.
By any chance, was the first one that you ever participated in Ask Al Kellogg?
I don't think so. Searched back of the times that I've atted Al Kellogg, no. So I don't think that's the reason Al Kellogg has blocked me, because I asked him, a
question.
A question, one of my questions. So yeah, I'm going to ask you the questions, Rory, because I'm getting frustrated about it. So
all right, okay.
You can pretend you're Finn Russell.
Yep.
Just for this one, who would win in a fight between 1,000 ducks and 10 bears? The ducks are highly organised.
I'll go with the bears.
Okay, good answer. That's fine. They just need one word. It's not. I'm not asking for an essay. Johnny Gray. What kind of whale would you be if you had to be a whale?
You see, now this is the problem. I think Johnny Gray is. He might not even be a whale. He might be. Well, I want to say whale shark, because they're like. Everyone thinks they're a shark, but really they're kind of big and smiley like a whale, and not really sharky enough. So I would say he was actually a whale shark. Is it?
That's a good answer. Yeah,
I've gone over my 280 characters.
The last one was Hamish Watson today. Now this is interesting, because I then got in a debate with either Hamish Watson or one of his business associates, because I asked the question, "What's your favourite type of hat?" Please note, a baseball cap is a cap and not a hat, and so is not an acceptable answer. And then. So Rex Hats then tweeted me and said, "What do you mean a cap is not a hat?" So then I sent them a link about an article on what the difference between a cap and a hat was. Basically, a hat has a brim all the way around, and a cap just has the peak at the front.
Okay.
I haven't had an answer though. I don't think. I haven't checked for a while.
Healthy debate.
Yeah. So
we like Rex Club. Their caps are.
We reviewed them favourably. I think Brody reviewed them quite favourably. He quite liked them. He being of need of a cap. But what do you think Hamish Watson's favourite type of hat is? I think it's probably top.
I could see him in a wee sort of bowler hat thing.
Yeah, I'm not sure you carry off for Trilby, but bowler's a good shout.
Yeah, like a sort of maybe not like a city, not like the father in Mary Poppins, more like a kind of riverboat gambler bowler hat.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, that'd be good. Like the one, is it the ones they wear in the cats wear in what's that Disney film with all the cats in it? Aristocats.
Aristocats.
Yeah.
So the hoodlums probably.
Yeah. But yeah, that's what's annoyed me this week, is that I haven't had any answers to my questions. Although I think
you should just we'll do that on here now as a feature. You can just ask us your questions and we will try and answer.
I'm not going to stop. They tried to hide the Johnny Gray one on Instagram, but I found it. That's probably a good point to end it on. That's it from us this week. We'll be back next week to pour over the All Blacks game. Hopefully we'll have the audio all up and running. It'll sound normal, and we will have somebody. We won't have our sort of third man afflicted by man flu. In the meantime, do send us your hands in the ruck. Where's Dougie Donnelly's about your rumours, your spots of Ellie Barber or Andrew Cotter or John Beattie, anybody like that you've seen out and about. You can find us on Twitter at Scott Rugby Blog. Do leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. We had one from from I can't remember who it was now, who said that it was good that we weren't FP Harumpers, whatever that is. So I quite like that review. Leave us some reviews and we'll read them out. presumably you know where to find the podcast if you're listening at this point. But we are available on Spotify now and YouTube if that's easier for you. But for now, it's bye from me and bye-bye from Boulders.
Bye-bye, Black.
Bye-bye.
The biggest of all fish, 30 tons in weight, 12 meters long, a whale shark.